All right, good afternoon. It is Friday, the 19th of February. We're starting to get a little bit warmer weather, so that is very welcome. And once again, I am here with Jim Inglis and Bethany Erb from our Governmental Affairs team for an update on the different things they've been up to, policies they've been working on. So good afternoon, guys.
Hey, Eric.
All right, so we have, once again, a stacked agenda. There's a lot of things going on in DC and across the country, so we're going to jump right in. Jim, we're going to start off with the big program again. What are we hearing on CRP?
Well, it seems like we keep talking about this, but we always have good information. So recall that the last time that we had gotten together to do this update was there in the end of December.
Yep.
And so what we talked about then was the issue with the CRP sign-up, and we didn't know then actually how bad it was going to be with the how many acres we were going to end up at the end of the year. So right now we're at 20.7 million acres of CRP. The target for this year was probably closer, last year was closer to about 24.5 million, so we're below that cap.
Yep.
One of the things that we requested of USDA is to reevaluate what they were doing with rental rates and cost share. And so there was a sign up that began in early January, and it continued through, it was supposed to continue through February 12th, and USDA did extend the sign up, which was great to hear. And as we did in the last update, then Eric, you'll be able to put some of the links here within this broadcast to let folks know where those are. But FSA did do that extension. USDA extended it. They're going to look and possibly look at the rental rates and the cost share to make sure that things are as good as they can be to encourage enrollment. So we don't have any other details on that as of now, but it was a good sign, and USDA did listen to us that they are going to go back and take a look at that.
Awesome. That's good news.
The other thing I wanted to cover too is that, since we last talked, then Secretary Vilsack, we did mention that former Secretary Vilsack was the nominee to be secretary again.
Yep.
And he went through his confirmation hearing on Senate Ag Committee a couple weeks ago, and he had a great dialogue with members of the Senate. And CRP did come up a couple times there, and it sounds like that when he gets in place, then he's willing to again look at where we can make some changes to get the CRP acres back up where they need to be. And so his full Senate vote for his confirmation will be next week, I believe it on Tuesday. So once that happens, then he'll be able to move through and get down to USDA and get things moving again. We also just saw today that there were some more appointees of positions at USDA. The administrator for FSA, the undersecretary there at USDA as well. So again, there's career and appointed positions that are getting in place that are going to help move the conservation programs out there, and do what we can to get that stuff implemented at the county level.
Good. I think we're all excited to see those folks get established and see what we can do to get more acres on the ground.
Yeah. So the other thing as far as nominations is we also have the Department of Interior, and the secretarial nomination there is Representative Deb Holland from New Mexico. So her hearing again is also going to be next week for the Senate committee there. So hopefully on the Interior side, people will get in place. And, we also work very closely with the Department of Interior, whether it's BLM or U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, or even national parks, where we're doing some quail work on parklands or pollinator habitat. So, those are the two main agencies that we work with the closest, and then their respective agencies underneath there. So we're looking forward to that. The other thing that's going to happen next week is that there is a House Ag Committee hearing on that's taking a look at agriculture and forestry for climate resiliency, and the ability for private lands, and it's like we've been saying, I know Bethany's going to talk about it, the ability for some of the current farm bill programs and other private lands programs to sequester carbon, and we get some good habitat out of it. So with that, that's kind of all on my list right now. I'll hand it over to Bethany.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Great update. One thing I wanted to kind of touch on a little bit is because we've got a few questions on how's Washington functioning, and how are members of the with their staff, and as the agencies come together. I think it's like most of our, or a lot of our members, we're doing most of it virtually. The congressional offices maybe have 1 or 2 staff in them. So our meetings, conferences, etc., look just like this format that we're having right here. We've gotten pretty comfortable with it. We're doing a fly-in next week with Intermountain Joint Ventures and got all sorts of meetings lined up on Capitol Hill and the agencies. So it'll be interesting when the pandemic passes, because I do think that this will bring new opportunity for people that aren't in Washington or can't easily get to Washington to be able to communicate with their members of Congress. So just kind of wanted to add that in there. Start off with a little discussion about 30 by 30 initiative. And you might have heard about it, kind of, what is this? So I don't know the exact amount of days, but about 65 days ago, the White House issued an executive order, which was very long, and it included, it was all about climate, the different climate provisions that they would engage in, including re-entering the Paris Agreement. Those things aren't part of our mission, but there are part of the executive order that are part of our mission, and that's 30 by 30. So it's this idea that within 9 years, by 2030, we're going to go to conserving 30% of our land and water mass. Now, right now, the figure that I've seen and that the White House is using is that we currently have 12% conserved. So it gives 90 days for the Secretary of Agriculture, Interior, Commerce, and the Council on Environmental Quality to bring recommendations back to the White House on how these goals are going to be achieved. So right now, it's visionary, and we are engaged in the process, submitting comment and ideas. Our good friend Colin Peterson back in the fall kind of saw this coming, and that was the 50 million acre marker bill. Yep. A marker bill is largely a position. It's more like a look at what I've got to say. It may not be included in as an actual legislative proposal, but it's meant to mark a position. And his thought then was that CRP deserved a bigger role in a climate discussion because of the value that it provided for carbon sequestration. So we started in the fall. Jim and I, with Jim's lead, were engaged in a 30 by 30 coalition so that we made sure that sportsmen's interests were protected in this discussion. And that was a coalition with the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation and many, many others. Just making sure that we were in the center of the discussion. So it was good foresight on the sportsmen's community. And then we were a little surprised that it was an executive order this early. Happy to engage. I think we're working through what it actually means. Our position is shaping up to be ours, meaning Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. That we believe that that private lands are critical to this discussion, that not all conservation has to be in perpetuity, that there can be short-term programs, short-term easements to reach this very large goal, that we don't think just making the federal estate is bigger is the right approach. And so Absolutely. I think it's equally as important for us to state what we're not for as what we are for. And that's why we feel strongly we need to be in this discussion. We're advocates for rural America. We're advocates for the rural economy. So we won't be supporting, in fact, we'll be opposing likely be opposing anything that would be regulatory or burdensome for landowners, farmers, ranchers in rural America. So wanted to give our members out there, particularly those in the West, confidence to let you know that while we see this as an opportunity, we're also staking middle ground in saying that if there's anything that comes our way that we feel is antagonistic to rural America, that we're going to push back on it too.
Absolutely. In the Midwest, we appreciate hearing that too, because a lot of our members and supporters and the folks that own the ground we like to hunt on, those are all private. One of the huge benefits of the CRP program and the other programs that our Farm Bill staff work with is they're voluntary. If you can incentivize it and make it worth the effort, worth the time, worth the money, landowners will do the right thing.
So within that 30 by 30 and sort of climate focus, and you can read more about this. We're going to do a 3-part series in our magazine talking about why we've decided that we need to be part of this movement, not that we created it, but that being part of it is critical. And that'll be coming up in a 3-part series in our magazine. But there's also a real opportunity for us to move a new Grasslands initiative. And we've talked about this in our publications and on these updates with you, Eric.
Yeah, you brought it up in December.
I think we did, yeah, about creating a new Grasslands program, likely NACA-like. And so we are currently, that's under construction. We're working through it. We have a lot of partners and congressional staff that are interested in it. And so getting the details right, the language right, the numbers right, it's going to take us some time. But we feel like there's a really great window for us to promote new Grasslands initiatives. And so we're also working on that in Washington. If you haven't watched the campaign video yet, or you won't have yet because it's February 25th, the announcement of our new initiative for Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever, we do talk a lot about this potential Grasslands initiative. So tune into that on February 25th. And those are the big things I got on the federal side right now.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's a big new program on the horizon potentially. That's a huge thing for changing the habitat across the country. So that's exciting news.
Yeah, just to add a little bit to that too, that I didn't mention about the Vilsack confirmation and what he's been saying, but and we'll have this again in the link of some of the resources for you to look at. But he has talked about publicly a CRP as being one of those voluntary programs that we can use for carbon capture, and as you mentioned, Eric, other things, that voluntary access programs where it can be beneficial to our members and those that want to hunt, fish, recreate, on those lands. And so it was encouraging to hear him say that during his confirmation hearing, as well as what he said here in the media. So and if you're following any of our social media, either on Facebook or on Twitter or Instagram, then we are posting some of these articles that are coming out there, and in some cases we are quoted in those, and we're being looked at as some of the folks that can help with this discussion.
You bet. And then I just got this in the mail this morning. Super excited. Is there anything in here I should be looking for?
So there are two updates. The Capitol Insider in there. We'll talk about this.
Perfect.
And that's the one thing that's great about being able to do these updates with you, is because if you look at the Capitol, if you look at that first couple pages there, then that's a little bit outdated already because of what we learned. We didn't know about the CRP extension until after that was published and out to print. So, yeah. But that's another thing to point out is if you reference our policy page, or if you follow the social media accounts, we try to get this information out there as quickly as possible. So sometimes it can be a little bit behind. Yeah.
Does that have anything to do with what you were talking about, Bethany?
Yeah.
I think it. Oh yeah, there it is.
The Call of the Uplands.
Yep, there it is.
That's the big thing on the 25th. We're all going to be anxiously awaiting news on at the computer. I'm going to be there. You going to be there?
Absolutely.
Good deal. Good deal. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, so I just had to ask if I should be paying attention to that or not.
There also in the annual, or there's another section in there where it talks about our other efforts, like with the Grassland initiatives that Bethany talked about. But so yeah, be sure to take a look at those as well.
Absolutely.
The other thing we want to talk a little bit about today is our stateside efforts, and as we've mentioned in previous sessions here, that we work really closely with the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation. And if you go to our policy site, there is a link there. We're hoping to get that ramped up even more here in the future. But that's how we really work on our stateside efforts. And so there are a couple of things that I wanted to mention here. Oklahoma, there was a kind of a public lands bill, or folks were pushing back on the public lands, and we're engaged on that. There was an action alert that if you're from Oklahoma, you may have seen that on the Oklahoma social media, as well as if maybe we've gotten an email as well. Indiana, there was a wetlands bill that was concerning to us and many partners and some of the agencies. So, working with our Indiana team out there and your counterpart over there, Eric, on that. We've got a right to hunt and fish language. They've been around. That right to hunt and fish is a constitutional amendment for the states, have been around for a number of years, but it's being picked up more. And Eric, it sounds like you've got that moving there in your state. So your chapter leaders and members have learned about that through your stateside newsletter on the efforts there. And so just to let you know that we continue to work on some of those things that are coming across our desk on a daily basis. So, but a great way to track that is through that stateside policy and look what's going on in your state through the CSF link. It's going to kind of throw everything at you. So anything that has to do with conservation, hunting or fishing or trapping and all of those may show up, but we're going to try to come up with a system that'll filter that out that's really important to our members. But again, it's a good resource there. So That's kind of it from the stateside update there, Eric.
Well, I'm an optimist, but I really like to see when not only are we being reactive at the state level to policies, but we're being proactive in things like the right to hunt and fish legislation. That's an opportunity to be proactive and actually lock those rights down and make sure that language is in the Constitution. So it's always exciting to see that going into code. So yeah, good stuff.
And there's some other language floating around out there about that ability to have public lands. And that public lands are important and it should be offered and available to many people. So yeah, we work on that. The other thing that happens during these legislative sessions, or even the budget side of things, legislatively and administratively, and we're engaged on that on the state levels to make sure that our partners at the state fish and wildlife agencies and other agencies have the funding and the programs available to them. Some of that takes, legislative action from the state side, and some of it's administrative. So we're engaging on that almost on a daily basis this time of the year too, as we get into the next budget cycle for the fiscal year.
Absolutely. And you mentioned public access there, and one thing that I noticed on the Pheasants Forever website the other day, our mission statement has been updated and we officially have public access, education, conservation advocacy in the mission statement. That's a great step forward as far as I'm concerned. So I'm glad to see that.
Great point. Yeah.
Habitat and access, right? We know that our members and volunteers and chapter members are all, really interested in that. So we try to work on that as much as we can.
Yep, huge priority for a vast majority of our chapter volunteers and members. So, and I also, just for fun, I pulled up the conservation policy and programs page. You guys have been working hard on this along with whoever is building this for you, but it looks great. There's a ton of information there. So highly recommend anybody watching this, if you want to dig in and learn more, check this out. Check out the, what is it, Huntfish 30, I believe is. Yes, huntfish30.com is the website for the 30 by 30 initiative. Very excited to see where that goes. And anytime you can do combine habitat hunting and carbon sequestration and voluntary conservation programs, that's fantastic. So, as far as PFQF is concerned, for this former field biologist, that's as big a win as you're gonna get.
I mean, Jim and I are, well, I think Jim is too. We're just super enthusiastic about what's going on right now. It was a tough year last year on a lot of fronts. I mean, there were some big policy wins, but we see an opening now for progress for a few of our favorite programs and new programs that we haven't seen in a while. And we're extremely busy on the state policy and federal policy side, but it's really fun and exciting stuff. And we just can't wait to continue to engage our members and our staff and get people rallied up for the campaign and all the cool stuff for the uplands. It's like on the horizon.
Yeah, suddenly everything seems to be moving, and it's great. I mean, we had to reschedule this meeting multiple times just because cool stuff kept popping up you guys needed to do.
Yeah, I'll leave it to a Friday afternoon here at just about before quitting time. So yeah.
Yeah, I've just been waiting. If we go too long, I'll know it because my wife will get home and my dogs will start going off in the next room. So, but the other thing that kind of cracked me up, Bethany talking about, using video conferencing for a lot of these meetings that you're having with legislators and stuff. The thing that brings to mind to me is, from like the NYLC all the way up to, landowner fly-ins.
Yep.
We get a lot done by bringing landowners from specific parts of the country dealing with specific resource concerns and specific programs into DC to meet with legislators. I'm trying to imagine how many more of those we could set up if we could do it virtually like this. Getting a landowner with a field rep out on their property showing legislators exactly what we're talking about could be really proactive.
Totally. Jim and I were having this conversation this morning about being able to do that and doing it, and how the technological advances over the past year and the format that we've become comfortable with have really had the ability to, in a lot of ways, level the playing field. So you don't have to live in Washington to be able to meet face to face with your congressman or staff. I mean, it's as easy as what we're doing right now. So that's really cool. I mean, I guess that's one of the good byproducts of the pandemic.
Absolutely. Increased communication is always great. That's why I like doing these videos, making sure our volunteers and members can, hear what you guys are up to. Because like I said, you're always busy. It's fun knowing what individual things you're working on, and between DC and all the states you're working in, it's wild what you're trying to accomplish. It's great.
Well, my daughter just asked me, she knows that we've done a couple of these now, and she said, do people like them? I'm like, well, I think they do. And she said, well, on YouTube, are you guys influencers now? And I'm like, I'm like, we're going to have to make an appeal to our members to like and follow us so that we can become influencers, the three of us.
Absolutely. You know what? I don't care if I'm an influencer, but if we can get PF to be an influencer is online like it is on the Habitat world, man, that just, we're never good. We're too humble. Our volunteers are too humble. We're never the #1 group for making sure all that we accomplish is available for public viewing and for public knowledge. And that's something we're always struggling with and trying to do better at. So I think anytime we can take our volunteers' accomplishments, our policy accomplishments, and put them out in front of the public, that's a good thing. But all right, so the last thing I wanted to cover, it is mid-February. And we have had a bunch of chapters step up this year and support the Legislative Action Fund, which is what makes all of this possible. It makes huge difference in habitat across the country. And I, just wanted to take a minute and thank all of our chapters and our volunteers who stepped up and made those contributions to the Legislative Action Fund and made this all possible, because it wouldn't be without them.
That's right. We still need that support, and we know that, it's been challenging to do the fundraisers, and you're finding new ways to do fundraisers, and hopefully this spring and summer things will loosen up a little bit more where we can get together and have some fun and raise a little money. But absolutely, the Legislative Action Fund is critical for what we do, and at the federal and the local levels. So appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep, mission doesn't stop. We're going to make it through this pandemic, and we're going to be further ahead than ever. I'm excited to see where we're going to be at. And I tell you what, I've just started hitting the road a little bit and meeting with volunteers, and it makes life a lot better when you can actually see people in person and talk to them. So looking forward to at some point seeing you guys in person as well. So let's hope that's sooner rather than later. But we have made it through our agenda and even kept it on a fairly tight schedule. So thank you both very much for all that you do, for your time, for making yourselves available. I'm going to try to get this edited, get some links added to it, all the different things we referenced today, and try to get this up on YouTube and shared out to our chapters next week. But thank you for all you do, and I'm looking forward to doing this again here in another month or whenever you deem it necessary, because we've got a lot of stuff going on.
Thanks, Eric. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks.
You bet. Bye.